I would like to invite Mr. Jandejsek to tell us something about this speech. Mr. Jandejsek is well known not only among the agriculture community. Until this year, he was a president of the Agrarian Chamber of the Czech Republic. He is still member of the Board of Trustees of the Agriculture Chamber. He is also CEO of rabbit company Trhový Štěpánov. He studied the Faculty of Economics at the University of Living Sciences. He also studied pedagogic, and he is PhD in economic sciences. He worked in the state farms. And the rabbit Trhový Štěpánov company is an important producer of agriculture commodities. The company owns 5 slaughterhouses where they slaughter poultry, pigs, rabbits, and so on. So now I would like to invite the important agriculture expert on the importance of livestock production in Czech agriculture for ensuring food safety. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to move a little bit from the world, from Europe to our forests and meadows, and I would like to tell you something about issues that are constantly discussed. It is discussed primarily by general public and primarily by those who almost know nothing, which I feel really sorry about it. We should give floor to our experts that spend life in agriculture and food production. I would like to speak about agriculture production in livestock, animal production. We are talking about the fact, is it needed or not? And then in the other part, we will hear that we almost give up animal production. But we forgot what the animal production can contribute. We are talking about water retention in the soil. It become quite trendy to speak about dry season, that we have to build dams and we have to apply the water safety elements and so on. Nevertheless, if we implement humus, crumbly structure in the soil and capillaries that holds the water, then we will convert the situation. It will be different. One Danish study revealed that if we just manage the soil well with enough organic matter, then it will keep sufficient water, more than Danish waters and rivers combined. We know that Denmark is quite rich in waters. And then I have never heard that any specialist would talk about it. If a soil lacks organic matters, then of course in the light soil water is not kept in top soils too deep, and in heavy soils water does not seep and flows into watercourses. And I'm talking primarily about areas that is not managed. For instance, 20 to 30 years ago, grass was seeded and nothing else happened afterwards. So without animal production, if we have no way how to deliver organic matters to soil, then we have no air in the soil, and the air is needed for plants. If you drive around the fields, then we know that those who do not support, then the soil is missing the oil and it's not that rich. The plants are missing air. Then you are missing larvae, beetles, earthworms, microorganisms. Without life in the soil, in fact, the soil does not function well. The earthworms, beetles, and so on cannot live there. And one more substantial element are birds. And in fact, everything related to the food chain. Without life, then we should not wonder there are no birds. In fact, birds do not live there, not because they are poisoned by chemistry, which is also one of the popular theses we heard about it, but birds are not living there because they don't have enough organic matter in the soil. So we should be quite clear and say that sufficient organic, not having sufficient organic matter in the soil means that the soil is not crumbly enough, and in fact phosphorus and calcium and Russell is bound to that another macro element. So without organic matter in the soil, we cannot improve the condition of a soil as such. Without a continuous supply of organic matter to the soil, we have to say that the fertility decreases, so the yields of plant commodities. That happens mainly with a long-term or insufficient supply of organic matter to soil. It, in fact, shows a number of facts. I feel really sorry that our politicians, in fact, declare that we are managing the soil too much, and that's why we are decreasing its yield, which is a lie. And that means that those who promote those theses are illiterate in agriculture. It's different. Once you deliver to everything that soil needs, that means balanced animal and plant production, then the yield is increasing. It's a nonsense what our politicians and sometimes Euro politicians are declaring, and we have to promote the truth. So I just wanted to show you a few figures, what we have done in order to improve the situation. In 1989, we had 1,247,000 of dairy cows. Today, we have only 362,000 of dairy cows. That means 29% only. Speaking about sows, in 1989, we had 312,000 pieces. Today, only 700,000 pieces. That means 28.1 pieces. Speaking about laying hens, we had 15,699,000 pieces. Today, we have only 5,260,000 pieces. There were a lot of discussions about cages and so on. But this is only 33.5%. This huge decline in animal production, livestock number, is unparalleled in the world. Perhaps only in Slovakia, and maybe Romania and Bulgaria will follow. That means new countries. Due to set subsidies in the European Union, that in national subsidies are 4 times lower than the situation in the Czech Republic is said that it is in fact a country for foreign suppliers because Czech market had opened and it's ready to liquidate its agriculture economy. Most of the EU countries, not only that they did not reduce livestock numbers since 1990, but they have increased them. And today, with the help of several times higher national subsidies than in our country, they are systematically liquidating our market for agricultural commodities. Comparison of production of selected commodities in the Czech Republic. I just wanted to show you the data per 100 hectares of agricultural land, for instance, producing milk per 100 hectares of agricultural land in thousands of liters. Czech Republic 75, Germany 170, that means 2.3 times higher production per 100 hectares. Not because their yield is higher, no, they have a lower yield than Czech Republic. Speaking about Holland, they have 9.8 times higher production per 1,000 liters. I mean, thousands of liters per 100 hectares of agricultural land. So you see that we cannot talk about decreasing animal livestock. It's a nonsense, and those who promote those theories should think about it. And I think they don't know what they are promoting, because farmers will never agree with that if we knew in advance that we are going to be close to the EU average. Speaking about the pork production, it's a catastrophe. Czech Republic produces 62 kilograms of pork per 100 hectares of agricultural land. Germany, 5.3 times more, that means 326 kilograms. Holland, 690 kilograms, that means 11 times higher per 100 hectares of agricultural land. So in fact, we have withdrawn from the markets. We were pushed to the corner. It is demonstrated on those slides. Speaking about beef, it's similar. Czech Republic, 21 kilograms per 100 hectares. Germany, 71. That means 3.4 times more. And Holland, 9.9 times higher. That means 208 kilograms. I'm really sorry that our members of the parliament, both the Czech parliament and the European parliament, cannot argue by those numbers, with those numbers, because Czech Republic has great agriculture conditions, despite the fact that we have decreased the production. Still, we are doing quite well. I will demonstrate it in a minute. But before I'll show it to you, we need to benchmark and talk about the fact how it would be if we improve it. If we increase cattle stock by 20%, I mean the true stock now, not cattle stock in 1990. If we increase pig numbers by 80% to, let's say, 150,000 sows, pigs, we used to have 300,000. If we increase poultry stocks by 40%, then we would produce per year 18 million tons of manure per year. That means organic matter that should be delivered to the soil. In 20 years, when the animal numbers are approximately at the current level, we have depleted our agricultural land by 360 million tons of manure, which is the organic matter that needed to be delivered. And I do not talk about other thousands of tons of burned organic matter, for instance, from straw granules that is burned in the power plants. And we, for instance, export it outside of the Czech Republic, for instance, to Linz. So if we are able to compensate those deficits, then we will increase the fertility of soil. We will be able to maintain air in the soil, and we will bring back life to soil. And we can talk about our increased fertility of soil compared to full self-sufficiency in basic foods. Just to compare, let's benchmark 1990 with the current situation in self-sufficiency. Speaking about milk and dairy products that we consume not only in the form of milk and cottage cheese, but we also deliver it to confectionaries, coffee shops, and baking industry. We are self-sufficient to 90%, only 120% in milk and dairy products. Speaking about self-sufficiency in pork, we are at 39%, not 90%. As we hear from our politicians, from our ministries, nobody counts that in fact, meat is sold with bone, for instance. Nobody buys the bones anymore. And for instance, the marrow bones are not sold anymore. Nobody buys it. Speaking about self-sufficiency in poultry meat, we are at 57%. Speaking about egg consumption, we are self-sufficient at about 56%. We are self-sufficient in beef, but only due to the fact that we buy on average 7.8 kilograms per inhabitant per year, while in 1990s we have consumed in average 23.5 kilograms of beef per inhabitant annually. So what was brought by this development in all of our commodities? We are self-sufficient in vegetable at about 27%, fruit 30%, potatoes 40%, not 80%. Because if they tell you that it's at the 60 to 80%, they are talking about potatoes with skin, but we have a lot of products using potatoes, but while in fact including all potatoes and potatoes-based products, we are at 40% self-sufficiency. So the average self-sufficiency is currently estimated at about 58 to 59%. Is this self-sufficiency safe for our country? Definitely not. And it was demonstrated by the, for instance, current pandemic. For instance, in March, what had happened when there was 1 week lack of the imports? What was happening in the foodstuff industry and supermarkets? Once everything had changed, when the China had terminated imports and so on, so then they suddenly just ordered 50% of the standard orders. Just change the climatic conditions in Europe is enough to show what does it mean. For instance, floods can contribute to imbalances and so on. We had seen a few examples, for instance, in France, Germany, Austria, and of course it can extend to other areas. Anything can happen. So it may happen that some countries will withdraw, step out from the EU, countries that are really very productive in the agriculture, and it will have large impact. I think that each state should create the conditions for ensuring a maximum self-sufficiency for basic commodities, so the population is endangered as little as possible. And I'm talking about 80 to 90% self-sufficiency. Those should be the figures our government should strive for. I think that we, as a Czech Republic, we have great conditions for agriculture activities and for animal production. We have no big under zero temperatures, we have enough space, and people also discussed about the fact whether we should decrease the size of the arable agricultural land. We should benchmark with our situation with the other countries. In the Czech Republic, we have 31.1% of the arable land to the entire size of the land. We have so many forests and bosks, groves, unparalleled to other countries. We should argue with those figures, and we should definitely not follow the proposals of EU, because every EU state have different conditions. We are different within EU. It was already stated. So for commodities where we have above average results, we should be exporters. For instance, speaking about milk, we are the fourth best in Europe in milk and sixth best globally. We know how to produce milk, and we should be thinking about countries where we should export milk. Every country should develop what it is best in. And we know how to produce milk, so we should promote it. We should think about future, about our children, about our grandchildren, and not listen to those who promote nonsenses. And it's a decent description of the situation. Thank you very much for your attention.
We wish to thank Mr. Jandejsek for his presentation. And now let us have questions that we have received now. And now a question to Mr. Jandejsek, whom I apologize at the same time for a delay. First, a question, quite speculative. How long, so what will be the time for us to achieve self-sufficiency if there is full interruption of imports? I mean, in those commodities which we do not produce ourselves. We know that in Russia, the sanctions have led to the achievement of sufficiency in about 2 years. So good afternoon once again. So I think that we shouldn't base it on like the concept of stopping the imports. That would be a big error, because the population would start revolting and it would be a big problem. We should have been thinking about that before something like that could happen. If we set the conditions for us to increase production, mainly in the case of monogastrics, there is pork, poultry, and eggs. And at the same time, if we invest purposefully in irrigation for fruits and vegetables, I think there wouldn't be absolute sufficiency, but like commensurate, 80 to 90%, we could achieve that within 5 to 7 years. But the whole agricultural policymakers will have to think about that and set motivational conditions for receiving some supports and subsidies. And in that case, that we would have a chance. But if the conditions are not created, it would be difficult for us to make that achievement. But like you say, if imports are stopped, like you say, that would be within 5 years. That would happen in 5 years for sure. Next question. What would be the consequences of any further limitation of livestock production and the advertised so-called transfer to more plant food? I mean, what would be the economic, social consequences? I think that what this would change in this country would be we would produce less and less, and we would actually make our country available for the importers, because our people will not change dramatically their buying habits. They may be able to do that partially, but not dramatically. So what would happen is that would we actually release the market to other countries that are sufficient, like in meat, in Spain 374%, and Poland 120% of poultry, and we would actually open the market for them and actually enable them to export here. So it will be difficult to forcibly change the habits, maybe percentage-wise in some units, in some small percents, I would believe that. How do you propose to increase the cattle stock, and do you support the farm-to-fork objectives to shorten the supplier chains at local levels? Let's start from the end of your question. Yes, I support this, and if you read the Act on Food, the amendment of that Act on Food, where if there is if it happens that we actually give priority in selling to our shops, that is from short chains, that is mostly from the Czech Republic chains. So if I take it, let's say, measure it from the center of Prague, that would be 100 or 150 kilometers from two. That would be a very pleasant distance, and that would be enormous support. But I do not know what the position of our parliament members will be. They should think about what they will vote about. That was the second part of your question. But the first one, what was that? What is your opinion about diversification? Yeah, there was talk about how to move with the livestock production. It's very easy. It's very simple. If we are to set the conditions in our strategic plan, it would be simple to do. It would be to achieve certain production. Of course, those people will receive some subsidies or some benefits. If not, they will not receive, and it start very quickly. And so people start investing. And if there is support for those pillars, I think there should be. I think that mainly for poultry and pork, things should move forward very fast, but we have to look for the places where to build, where to modernize, where this is no obstacle for the population. So we should use old brownfields, and actually those old operations were abandoned, and we should renew them, renovate them, or actually on the make quite new buildings and start new livestock production. Let me note that there's a big pressure by non-profit organizations, and unfortunately great part of the public lent an ear to them without thinking about the consequences, that the consumption of livestock products should be reduced, and that food should be actually have more plant components. So actually, this setting, we cannot actually expect the European Parliament to try to push through a greater livestock production. There's one more question. What is your opinion about diversification to some other cattle species like Angus or the more popular bio breeding? I don't think there's a problem in the case of beef, actually, or cattle, to have more varieties, and our combined variety, the Czech one, has a better result with regard to usability of meat. So there's no big problem that we would not be able to produce good quality meat for our domestic market, but I'm never against the diversification concerning beef. And this one, a last question for Mr. Jandejsek. Are there any benefits, and which benefits in improvement the comfort of animals, and where is this beneficial or where not, to increase the comfort of animals? Yeah, you will find, certainly you will find things where conditions are set, like of welfare contribution, but there are many things that are not substantial and excessive. But farmers and veterinary experts should express their opinions on that. They should evaluate what could be a benefit or what would be just administrative steps so that something can be put through that was actually delivered from the table. So I would agree with the welfare concept, but it should be evaluated. And of course, those people who are active in that particular branch should express their standpoints. I wish to thank Mr. Jandejsek for answering questions.